Hi, this is Eric Durek, and welcome to the GLP-1 exercise series. This module is on a very important topic. It is exercise programming. Let's get started because I think this is going to be one of the most important elements of the GLP series. So let's take a look at exercise uh, programming here. So as I state with all of my other videos, my disclaimer is that we don't make any claims that this is going to be some sort of cure-all for people who are using GLP and are losing weight. It is an educational format, and the goal is to get you trained up so you understand all of the elements of GLP-1, even if you are an expert at designing programs for weight loss, which there are a lot of people in the United States who actually do weight loss programs in clubs, studios, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to make sure that we're not making any claims here because we don't want you to either, but we really want you to really develop an expertise in programming for GLP-1. So I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, SOS Nutrients, which is my colleague Steve Abbey. And Steve was our sponsor at the IDEA conference this year in Los Angeles. And I also do some work with the master amino acid pattern, which is what I think one of the top amino acid supplements that may be used with this group. For more information, you just have to contact us at medhealthfit.com and we'll get more information on both of those products. Wow, rising tides of GLP-1 usage. And I just want you to look at overall usages here. The blue one that I'm highlighting is the Saxenda, and the green one is the use of Ozempic, which is just skyrocketing here in the last few years. And you can look here, people with type 2 diabetes, you have the same trend here with Saxenda. It's still going up a little bit of a curve down, but the use of Ozempic is still going way, way up. People with cardiovascular disease, again, you've seen a little bit of a tapering here with Saxenda, but you still see this really, really big increase in the use of Ozempic. And the same here, people who are just overweight and obese, the amount of Ozempic use here is just, again, rising very high, where we're starting to see, again, a little bit more of a taper here with Saxenda. Most of the other ones here, Victoza, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Batavia, all the other drugs here, they're seeing an increase, but it's not nearly the amount of increase. Some, like in here with diabetes, they're pretty much flat, and there's not much of a difference in the drugs in overall usage. But I don't know if it's just marketing, but we are really starting to see a massive, almost hockey stick increase right here in terms of the drugs for type 2 diabetes and people who are overweight. I remember in my martial arts days reading Bruce Lee's The Tao of Jeet Kune Do, where he says there is no best way. There is no absolute way that you can train someone who's taking Ozempic or any other of the GLP and GIP medications that is going to be magical, that's going to help them reduce the weight, keep it off, and have them healthy the rest of their lives. I think in general, if we look at strength training with this group, we want to start out moderate. We want to make their progression based on their abilities. We want to work up to a reasonably high level of intensity, and I'll talk about that a little more in a second. And we have to really understand their recovery periods, because recovery is becoming such a big thing in the sports medicine industry with compression sleeves and cold water plunging and all these types of things to help with recovery. We want to make sure that people who are on GLP understand the concept of recovery as it relates to their strength training program. Their sessions are, in matter of fact, mostly based on their medication dose. When I worked in diabetes, I would always say that exercise is blood sugar dependent. When blood sugars are high, you have very much a liberal amount of training you can do, marathon training, high intensity strength, etc. But if blood sugars are low, you better be careful, because they could get really sick, and you don't want that to happen. It's the same with the medication dosages. they're already not eating very much. So they're almost in a pre-bonking phase. And you have to be very careful, like I say, how you do your intensity and duration, but also how you recover in between sets and in between sessions. And then contraindications and any recommendations from their doctors, their physical therapists, and especially their dietitians is going to be very helpful in how you get the initial strength training programs going. So if you have a person who's maybe under 40, they maybe are losing 40 pounds or less, they have some previous exercise experience, and most importantly, their GLP dose is starting out pretty low, you have a lot more tools in your toolbox to really engage in a high level session with them, especially if they don't have any injuries to report. Well, that's going to be a little bit different with someone who's over 65. They may be morbidly obese. Okay. They don't have any experience exercising. They've got one or more chronic conditions, and maybe one of those conditions is joint pain, arthritis, etc. And they're on a higher dose of their GLP medication. That's going to be very important in terms of how you actually do the dose response to exercise. So I think that, one of the columns that I think is real good here is the GLP dosing. All right. Trainers, again, you're not prescribing it, but you absolutely have to know what that level is based on this person's BMI or their body fat percentage, et cetera. Why do I believe that strength training is king? Because strength training works on the muscles directly. There's not as much emphasis on cardiovascular, which, in my opinion, is a very good thing when you're working with people on this type of weight loss program. You can use strength or endurance training. You can progress from lighter weights to moderate weights to heavy weights. And if maybe they start to slide a little bit, you can go back to moderate weights. You have a lot of things that you can do in terms of working with them. And one of the things I say here is you can manipulate the rest periods, the speed of contraction, the range of motion, the eccentric component. There's all kinds of things that you can do that you already know as a trainer and a strength training expert that you can now apply to people who are on GLP-1. And you can train one body part. We have a woman here that's doing pulls with both arms. You could actually do pulls with single arms with both sides. And I think that that may actually be a very important thing to do in terms of having them understand strength training, but not getting them to lift the weights at the beginning that's so heavy that they're too sore, they never want to come back. So I think that, again, some of the stuff which is intuitive to me, is something that really can be applied by strength and conditioning specialists, just like if you were training someone with an injury. Okay. And that actually goes back to DeLorme's original work in the 1940s, where if one body part is in a cast, you work the other body part, you've got some reciprocal intervention, and the body as a whole actually responds. So strength training versus aerobics, I would say that a person could do light to moderate aerobic training on their quote off days, but I would want to get the strength and conditioning going at least 2 to 3 days a week at the beginning, maybe 3 to 4 days a week within the next couple months. I'm a bigger fan of Pilates than I was, early in my career, because I know that Pilates can have some really, really good functional strength benefits without building, muscle per se, muscle size. And I think that according to Dr. Renee Rogers from the University of Kansas, she says it's the functional muscle you really want to be looking at. And I think that that makes a lot of sense, and that martial arts people like Bruce Lee had tremendous amount of strength and power, but he was not a very big man. His muscles were very dense, but he was not like a bodybuilder. And I know that there are a lot of sprinters. I know that there are a lot of other types of athletes that do not have the big size, but their muscle function is very, very high. And I also know that Ann Gilbert is one of the nation's leading proponents of using aquatic therapy as one of the top ways that a person can actually, number one, get into a group setting. So there's a sense of camaraderie. Number two, these women are using the water dumbbells, which they'll get some resistance. So they'll learn about range of motion, they'll learn about speed of contraction, they'll learn about balance, they'll learn about how to have their bodies operate in an aquatic medium. And then later on, they can move to land-based exercise. they got less chance of injury and they get much more confident, I think, at the beginning. So if your facility has a pool, I would want to talk with your aquatics instructors to really get a GLP-1 aquatics program first and foremost, and then move them next to possibly phase two after a month, 2 months, whatever, and to keep the aquatic program is something that they could do for years. Types of strength training. A lot of people start out with body weight. I know that when I worked with very frail elderly people, we used to have them do wall push-ups, and I would put the fitness ball against the wall, and I'd have them do quarter squats and then work their way up. So how they actually move their body in this first phase is very important. And I think that this would apply to GLP as well, especially people who don't have an exercise program. A person can then go to rubber tubing, they can go to towel exercises, and then they can go to strength machines. And I think that a lot of trainers would opt at the beginning of using machines to have them do a circuit: chest press, shoulder press, leg press, abdominal work if they can do it, inner outer thigh, calf raises, etc., and then possibly do combinations of free weights and machines down the road. I'm also became a really big fan of ARX training, which is here on the left side. We've got a woman using the ARX machine because it's a functional training machine and it's done on electronics. You actually are doing a double positive. That platform comes towards you and you have to resist it. And then when it hits a range of motion, you have to push against it as it goes back to the starting position. Fantastic machinery. I think it would be wonderful if you have access to ARX at any level. I think it's one of the more perfect machines, and there's combinations of machines that you could use for people who are overweight, who don't have the exercise experience, because they can use as much pressure against the pads as they can. So the goal is improving functional strength and maintaining that lean body mass, which is so important when a person is taking GLP medications. Phase one, moderate intensity, concentrate on form, concentrate on range of motion, and really working major muscle groups. Phase two is where you increase the weights, you increase the sets accordingly. You may do 1 to 2 sets in phase one, you may go to 2 to 4 sets in phase two, and add some minor muscle group exercises to the mix. Phase three is essentially doing something where you can go down to having someone do a 4 repetition max or 6 repetition max lifts, which is relatively heavy, and then possibly do a modification of a high intensity strength training program, 3 or more days a week. I think that after 2 or 3 months, a person will be in sufficient shape where they will be able to exercise about 3 to 5 days a week, pending they got 2 or 3 of those days with their trainers. Again, you're going to hear me bark about this throughout the entire module series. General strength training, yeah, but you've got to do body composition, water intake, quality of life assessments, pain-free range of motion. I would say it would be very important to do resting blood pressure on people as they come in, and you may want to get a large blood pressure cuff. You want to do resting and exercise heart rate. You want to look at heart rate variability. And we have the technology right now to do all of these things. And I have a technology module that I'll be doing a little bit later. And then just general questions about health and diet every month, every 6 weeks, every 2 months, depending on how long your program is. But I would suggest there are certain tests like body composition that you may want to do once a week or once every other week. And then the other pre and post testing, like your general health and diet questions, that you would want to do at the beginning and the end of each session. Again, blood pressure every time they come into the gym. One of the other interesting things about the strength training is that you have the ability to look at bone density with your clients. And one of the reports that I spoke about in one of my earlier modules was from Jenkins, who said that the combination of the tirzepatide and the strength training, the bone density was actually maintained in the femoral neck and the lumbar spine while these people were on the medication, which is actually huge because, again, the foundation and the structure here is the bone health as it relates to the muscle health. You can't pull more on the muscle if your bones are weak and fragile. So here, I think that having some sort of DEXA scan or having some sort of scan from their doctors or using one of the HEAL scans is going to be very, very important in terms of how these programs go, because trainers understand about bone density, especially those who are trained in exercise physiology. And so at least understanding if your clients have low bone density or moderate bone density at the end of a 20-week session, did they improve their bone density by even a small amount, or did they maintain within plus or minus one standard deviation? So physician follow-ups, you want to have regular body comp over time. Doctors are going to be very interested in that, especially the water section. You're going to have the weight loss data because that's part of the body composition. You want to emphasize your work in having your clients be rehydrated. So when you speak with physicians, you say part of the work we're doing with them is to make sure that they're drinking enough water during exercise and also when they're at home. And then any quality of life improvements. We've got some of the quality of life programs and assessments right here in the manual, and we're more than happy to recommend what may be a best fit model for your program. So one-page summary to your doctor. You want to have a summary maybe on one person or a small group for practices, and you want to send that to as many doctors in your area as you can. And this is really an area that my company excels at, is that we actually help people do the data analytics that we can put into a white paper, or actually have something that you can put in with a group or maybe 2 or 3 other clubs for a small research publication that's submitted to a medical or sports medical journal. So I appreciate your time. If you want to take this very small exam here, you can go to the SurveyMonkey. You log on to medhealthfit.com and you go to the GLP link, and this SurveyMonkey will come out. You can do the small one at the end of this exam, or you can just take the 40-question big exam and just get it over with. Or we can download it. We can send it to you as an email. You can fill it out and just get it back to us as well. Either way is great. You can mail it to me at edirac@medhealthfit.com. If you have any questions about the modules, the course, or the weight loss issues that we talk about, give me a call. I'm more than happy to have a discussion with anybody, because I think this is such an important topic. And I think that it's such an important part of your sort of newfound exercise programming, because I'm already seeing in a number of countries where the weight loss centers are wanting to refer now to the health clubs. So the health clubs need to be ready. And part of being ready is taking the GLP-1 certificate program, because there's an awful lot of information in there that's put into a condensed format for you. And it's really going to get you thinking in terms of what's the best fit model that I can have for my client base. So again, if there's any questions, give me a call. If you want a copy of this module sent to you, send me an email. I'm more than happy to work with you. I appreciate your time. This is Eric Dirac for MedHealth Fit, and I look forward to speaking with you. Thanks.